My name is Tala Raassi. I am an Iranian-American swimwear designer. If I really think about it, my designing destiny began with Barbies. When I was a little girl, I became fascinated with threads, fabrics, colors, shapes, but most of all, with the beautiful models and clothes in my mother's illegal fashion magazines. After the 1979 revolution in Iran, many restrictions were imposed on women, and by law, they had to cover themselves. My mother owned this stunning, long, black mink coat that she always kept in the storage room. She chose not to wear it just because she didn't want to draw too much attention in public. So I thought, why couldn't Barbie wear it? At 8 years old, I cut about 8 inches off the bottom of this coat to make my blonde Malibu Barbie that came with a pink ruffled swimsuit, a fur coat. I didn't know what the value of fur was at this point in my life. I guess you could say I had good taste. As you may imagine, my mother did not find this creation as fascinating as I did. I was punished by my parents simply because what I had done was wrong. I think my parents wanted to discipline me, not to become reckless. What I took from their punishment was, of course, I shouldn't be cutting my mother's expensive clothing. I should look for these materials elsewhere. Perhaps somewhere my parents wouldn't find out. So a few months later, I cut a piece from my father's leather chair to make the same Barbie a leather skirt. I had seen a striking leather skirt in one of those magazines, and I wanted one. To my defense, the cut was fairly small and from the side bottom of the chair, so I didn't think anyone was going to find out. Unfortunately, they did. And this time around, my punishment more intense, and I think my parents thought that I was pretty much insane. Dreaming up and making this fur coat and the leather skirt truly sparked my desire to create. I didn't know what a fashion designer was at this young age. And growing up in Iran after the revolution, I didn't get to watch fashion shows on TV. Mainstream designer boutiques didn't exist back then. Women in the streets were always covered. Schools only prepare you for traditional careers. And of course, culturally, my parents wanted me to become a doctor, lawyer, perhaps a rocket scientist. Fashion was never really an option for me. And when you're born and raised in a place where being different, independence, and individuality aren't really options, your dreams may become limited. I started experimenting with fashion even more as I got older. Being creative and freedom-hungry in Iran as a teenager was a recipe for disaster. I was constantly clashing with the values of others. For most of my childhood and teenage years, it felt like the majority of the things that I wore was offensive to someone, whether it was my school officials, extended family, friends, or the government. And eventually, me wanting to showcase my personality and sense of style through what I wore and seek for more freedom got me in trouble with the government. I was put in jail and brutally punished for attending a co-ed party, dancing to Western music, wearing indecent clothing, but ultimately, for seeking freedom. But you see, bad things don't happen to you so that you can give up with a broken soul. They happen so that you can learn and rebuild yourself with even more strength to find purpose to become the person you were intended to be. When I moved to the US, I quickly realized that freedom was not about the amount of clothing I put on or take off. It was about having the choice to do so. I now could become whoever I wanted to be. And I kind of could start making money from doing what I actually loved. Navigating these two dramatically different worlds, from growing up in Iran under many restrictions to moving to the land of the free where dreams come true, gave me the desire to create more opportunities for myself. I quickly learned that I needed to take my options seriously because I had seen a place where people didn't have options. I couldn't take my freedom for granted because some people could only hope for it. I quickly realized that my dreams were not only valid, but important, because some people don't get to dream the way that we do. And I realized that the only difference between me and those people was that I held the US passport and was now given opportunities that most people would fight for. But I also realized that when I got to the dream country, my dreams weren't handed to me on a silver platter. I had to create them and work really, really hard to achieve them. I now knew what it was that I wanted to do, fashion, and I had found this purpose to fuel that dream. I wanted to build a clothing label that celebrated the beauty of women and empowered women all around the world to follow their dreams without the fear of punishment or judgment. Doesn't that sound amazing? It did to me. I just didn't know how I was going to do that. The unknown is intimidating, and it is human nature to focus on the possibility of failure. It's a fact of life that many of the risks we take don't pay off the way we want them to. But if you're open to the unexpected, life will always shed light on an area of an opportunity. You will have to then define that opportunity and realize why it's there to serve you. And once you identify this open door, you will have to plan a course of action towards that light to manifest the destiny that you crave. So I didn't waste any time. I got to work quickly. I took chances over chances. I started a t-shirt line when I was 21 years old, which completely failed due to my lack of knowledge in the fashion industry. I was scared, sad, depressed, devastated, embarrassed. But what I didn't realize at the time was that this wasn't a failure. I got to learn some of the most important aspects of the industry that I was trying to break into just by doing so, just by experiencing manufacturing, production, distribution, pattern making. No failures forever. There's always more and more chances. Plus, who sets up the bar for failure anyways? After this, I decided that I was going to open a boutique. I had this gut feeling that this was a genius idea and that it was going to get me so much closer to my dream. My father once told me, if partners were good, God would have one. He said this to me after a really bad business partnership. And of course, at the time, it didn't really mean anything to me. I just found it funny. It wasn't funny anymore when I found myself in a wrong business partnership and my store opened right in the middle of 2008 when the economy crashed. I failed again, and this time around, much bigger and much harder. But when I went back to an ordinary job, I really got the meaning of what it is. It is better to be at the bottom of the staircase you want to climb than to be on the top of the one that you don't want to be at. My swimwear line, it's my third company. And it's my third attempt in making my dream a reality, and a very messy attempt. When you try to achieve anything in this life, it can also create a mess. The best thing to do is to clean up that mess. Once you start picking up the shattered pieces, you will discover all the magical reasons that got you there. I have failed many, many times. From businesses, relationships, promises, the list of failures is long. Perhaps it's long enough that I was able to write a book about all my failures. Imagine that you have to cross a body of water, and in front of you are stepping stones. Some of these stones are close together, which makes it effortless. You jump to the next step, you keep jumping and moving forward. And then you look down, and the next stepping stone is further away, and there is no going back. So your options are to stand still paralyzed with fear, or to challenge your capabilities and remember that fear only has power over you when you doubt yourself. Growing up in Iran, I never thought I would become a swimwear designer, but I did. I never thought that one day I would be featured in the same pages of those illegal fashion magazines I used to dream about so much, but I did. I never thought that one day I would write and publish a book in English when I spoke no English until I moved to the US. But I did. We aren't owed anything in this life. We are born, and the rest is up to us. So if you want something bad enough, you have to go and get it, because some people aren't lucky enough to feel that kind of fire. Thank you.